All right, guys, let's look at some rhythm interpretation. These rhythms are from prior curriculum, but I have access to them, so I thought we would just kind of look at these and talk about these as a whole and kind of just walk our way through diagnosing these guys. So, first thing, remember you have these 5 steps. Regardless if you mix them and match them, as long as you do the 5 steps, that's fine. So you see on this one, it has rate and rhythm at the front. The book that you've been reading talks about the rate and the rhythm at the back. None of that matters. I do it in rate and rhythm at the front, but as long as you do all 5 of those steps, that's what matters. So let's just go ahead and get started. So we see that we've got a couple different methods we can use to find the rate. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 R waves within this 6-second strip. Or you can use the other way that I just called 300 method. I don't know what the real name is, but you go from here and you go 3, 150, 175, so right about 70, somewhere around in there. But I just use one to kind of confirm the other if there's a question for me. So rates somewhere in the 70s. Now we're not going to, right now we're just looking at our specifics, right? Because we haven't got into sinus and what all of those rhythms look like. So we're just talking right now about the specifics. So we see that our rate is in the 70s. Our rhythm, it looks, when you just take a glance at it, it looks to be pretty regular, but we can also, you can get your paper and start making tick marks, over this one, and then just kind of march them out. Or you can give it a quick glance of boxes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. Remember, you can have 0.06, difference in them between regular and irregular. So these guys looks pretty regular. We look for our P wave. Looks to be present. It's upright. Looks to be 1 to 1. Then we look for our PR interval. So remember, we're talking about the beginning of our P wave over to essentially our Q or our R wave, our next deflection. So 1, 2, 3, 4. About 4.5 boxes maybe. So, 0.16 or even up to 0.20. Remember your standards are 0.12 to 0.20. And then we look at our QRS. Our QRS is going to be 1 to, looks like maybe 2 boxes at the most, so 0.08. So that looks to be all within standards. Let's go ahead and look at, if I can, there we go. Get this to work here. So let's take a look at our rate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now remember, below 60 is bradycardia. Within 60 to 100 is going to be our normal rate. And then greater than 100 is tachycardia when we start talking about the heart. So we see that we've got a rate here. We've got about 11 R waves, or we can march it backwards. So 3, 151, and it's to the right of it. So about 110 probably. So we know we have a rate of somewhere around 110. When you glance at it, it looks pretty regular. But if you wanted to go ahead and march it out, you got 1, 2, 3 boxes. 1, 2, 3. The big boxes is what we're counting, right? The 5 small boxes make up 1 big box. So that's what I'm talking about if you're not sure. 1, 2, 3. We got a little bit of difference here, but we still look pretty good. Rhythm looks to be pretty regular. P waves look to be present and upright. Now, when you remember, in the curriculum, it talked a little bit about peaked T waves, but that's fine. We're just making sure right now that they're present and upright. Then we want to look at our PR interval. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4 boxes. So somewhere around 0.16. We look at our QRS, 0.06 probably. So those are all of our measurements for this particular rhythm. Now, from here, we start talking about what rhythm this is. We haven't got to that point. We're just talking about breaking these things down, looking for, do they fit within the normals or not? Now, when we look at this right away, usually what I kind of find myself doing is when you first glance at something, there's certain things that might stand out. Like this looks to be pretty regular when you glance at it, but when you look at these, and when they're irregular, it'll stand out. But you look at these P waves They look a little off. But that's not what we're concerned about right now, right? So a lot of times we'll see some things that doesn't look quite right just when you take a glance at it. So let's take a look at our rate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to have one right around here, but we see we've got 5. All we've got is 5 in this 6-second strip. So we're looking at, under 60. So we're talking about a bradycardic rhythm, right? We have a rate of somewhere in the neighborhood of 50. Rhythm looks to be pretty regular. We could count the big boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. Our rhythm looks pretty good. P waves, although it does look a little bit wonky here, they're kind of peaked and everything almost biphasic, going up and down a little bit. But that's not what we're concerned with. They are present and upright. Now we look at our PR interval. So I'm going to look at this one. 1, 2, 3, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5 to 4. So we're all within normal limits there. Now, when you go and you start doing these, I want to make sure I explain this. When you start doing these and you have the assignment on the computer, I need you to put in your measurements, not within normal limits. What I need you to do is put in the 0.16. Now, if I measure it at 0.12 or Josh does, typically he and I do this together. If one of us measures it a little bit off than you, that's not wrong. It can be everything from our perspective, the angle and sight and all that. But if you put something really weird, like if you put in a number of say 0.12, but it was 0.24, that's gonna be wrong. But don't worry about just those little insignificant differences. But I am gonna want you to put, a P wave that it's present and upright, and that the PR interval is 0.16 or whatever. QRS is 0.06. That type of stuff. So that's kind of what we're looking at our kind of our basic rhythm interpretation, just our standards. Remember, we're talking about rate, rhythm, P wave. Is it there? Is it 1-to-1? Is it upright and present and upright? Then we look at our PR interval. Is it within normal limits? 0.12 to 0.2. And then our QRS, is that within normal limits? So that's just a really quick rundown on EKG interpretation.